so great. I'm glad we have this chance for this conversation, and maybe just for some context about what started it. You were asking a few questions about thought and subconscious thought, like those types of questions. Maybe you can start that context and yeah.
Oh, yes. Like I was just saying to you, I'm just really interested in the truth of what's going on. And when you plunged into the therapy world, I mean, there are hundreds of different therapies. Like I said, it just goes to show that everyone's so confused, hundreds. So I've always been, ever since I trained, like, what's going on? Why are there so many different approaches? What really works? Does anyone really know? There's lots of theories in therapy. So I want to put them I want to know what Abraham Hicks says about those, or what you say about those theories that are being put out there as truth. And I was told is truth. Now go and work with your clients. This is what's true. Now go and work with your clients. And it appears that perhaps a lot of what I learned isn't true. So I know it throws the whole thing into question. And the first thing when I was thinking about, this conversation, is what I was thinking about is all therapy by nature is fixing. When you go into therapy, all therapy, what is it there? I suppose maybe that's a bit much putting it that way, because you could say, yeah, it's to help people reach their full potential or whatever. But a lot of therapy, when you think, oh, I need a therapist, I need to go into therapy, it's coming from the standpoint of there's something wrong, there's something broken, there's a wound, this needs fixing. And then we go into therapy and hope for the best. So that just got me thinking, the very focus on there's something wrong with me, now I've got to go and try and deal with this. And the focusing on that week after week after week must be so unhelpful, given what you say about focus. So I just would love to know, what is your view, or the Abraham Hicks view, on healing? Blanket term.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing? That's what
Yeah. Well, just briefly for context, you know about that stuff, that perspective, because just the context about you're a trained therapist.
Right. Yes, I'm a trained therapist, psychotherapy and counseling. I did. It was integrative, so we scraped the surface of lots of different therapies. I specialized more in the Freudian eventually when I was working in the NHS. Then I came across the 3 principles and was like, oh, we don't need to do any of this. Then I came across my own problems in my life, and I was like, hold on a minute, these 3 principles things doesn't work. I've got proper trauma here. So I went back into the rabbit hole of trauma type therapies, where I found from 20 years ago, having trained, there's this whole world of new therapies like NLP and belief coding and all this, like, wow, this is the same as what I did years ago, but it's a really quick way, but it's still on the same premise of, like, there's something broken, you need to go back and fix it. So that is my journey, all the time being very interested in, like, having seen lots of clients, very interested in, like, what is it that helps what is it that really helps a person? So that's my background. I specifically work with pregnant women and fear of childbirth at the moment, but it's like, that's who I am.
Right. Well, I love the starting point where you said, I want to know what's true. I want to get to the truth of it. That's really helpful, because it's different than all these perspectives about it, beliefs about it, views about it, like that. So what's true? That's always a great starting point whenever there's confusion or multiple views, and so what's true? I want to say that where I speak from is, it is for sure my understanding of the teachings of Abraham Hicks. It's my understanding of the teachings of Sydney Banks. Those are the two most deeply grounded that I sit in, and those two for me are in harmony and will most inform, I think, what we're talking about here. So to talk about truth, the most important truth in all of this is the truth of who we are. So I'm dealing with this client, and look, they have all these problems, and I have all these problems, right? Like, so to get to truth, we want to understand the truth of who we are. Who is it that has this problem? Who is it that we're actually dealing with? And what is the truth of them? What is the truth of me and my true nature? Those, without knowing that, then we're dealing with all of this from an untrue place. That would be like a starting point. It would be untrue to begin with, because if I misunderstand that fundamental premise, who am I really? Who I really am becomes essential. If I start with untruth about that, then the whole thing piles up from that. What do you see from that perspective now, in terms of knowing you and who we all are?
It seems to me there can't be a problem. From the perspective of who I am, that I don't perhaps fully know, there can't be a problem there. Is that correct?
Because a problem, well, yeah, that there can't. And by the way, we'll take it so it's not theoretical. Yes. About who I am. It's not theoretical. And there's no leap of faith. Eventually there is, but not in the beginning. We can get quite far without a leap of faith. In other words, you could start with who you know yourself to be.
Yeah.
And when I start with who I know myself to be, then I'm beginning in the who I think I am. Who I think I am. Well, it's obvious to me that I'm this physical body. I mean, that seems obvious to me, because that everywhere I even have conversations or wonder about things or look at anything, it's from this physical body. So that seems apparent, right? Now, I also realize that I think about things, I go dream in my mind, like I do all that stuff. So I get that it's more than physical. There's also like a psychology. There's also like a thinking that goes on. Now, by the way, as we hit that part of it, we might start to see where some of this is involved. But, there are ways that I think that are always the same ways that I think. I mean, I do see that. Oh, so there's a certain software and data that seems to be who I am. Yeah, it is me. I mean, I do remember when I was a kid, and that hasn't changed. So it's not like, oh, I used to be a different kid. No, I just keep remembering like that. So there's me, I get it, this physical. And then if I go around talking to people, I do introduce myself as who I am and where I came from and all of this stuff. So there's a certain data and psychology that seems to be here. And that's true, right? Like, and I know that, right? So far, this is who I am, and I know who I am, right? Then there becomes this point about not theoretical. It says, if I just calm down and just be present here, if I'm not really thinking right now, I'm going to notice some things. Like I'm going to notice that I breathe. And I don't get that because I'm not doing it, but it is happening, right? And if I pay attention, I notice that I end up like I'll get thirsty, I'll drink water, I get hungry and I'm eating. And then I notice that something happens and this food seems to move around nutrients to cells. It's incredible what's going on and it's happening. And if you get a cut on your finger, then I notice that by doing nothing, putting a Band-Aid around it, that the whole thing just heals itself. Somehow these cells in it, right? So not theoretically, I can see what the hell is that? So I get my physical body and then I get my thinking. But what's this other deal here? By the way, without which I wouldn't even be able to talk. Like I'm moving my hands. I can go pick something up. And yet I can pick up a glass with my hand by grasping it. And I don't break the glass. I just tend to hold it the right way. Well, they can't even, with everything we know, they can't quite get a robot built to do that. Like they'd get better and better, right? They used to create one with fingers like ours that would get the glass and then break it because it wouldn't. So they're like, how do we do it like that? So this is highly intelligent, like something is highly intelligent. It's breathing me, it's doing all this stuff. What is that? Because that also seems to be essential to who I am. That's the part to wonder about. There's not a lot I need to wonder about when it comes to this physical body because it's not a lot to it and it ends at the edges of my skin. Right? And my thinking goes on and on and on and on forever, most of it repetitive, right? Or I'll talk to someone else and I'll pick up more thinking, right? Or I'll watch TV and I'll get more thoughts, more ideas, right? So I can kind of gather all that stuff up. But what is this? Where does this other thing come from? And it is essential to who I am. Without it, it's like none of this would work. It would be the difference between a dead body and me. So talk about essential, right? So that's the part that goes, wow, that's part of who I am. That is who I am. Well, it turns out, and I'm going to suggest is the greatest part of you, who you are, is also this energy, intelligence, which Sydney Banks called mind, an infinite intelligence, mind. Now, why an infinite intelligence? See, as long as we were talking about my body, then we had a limit because it ends physically. If we were talking about my mind, we had a limit because I don't know certain things and I do know other things and I can gather more of them, right? So, but we're still in a limit. The minute we went to this place, which seems to go in intelligence beyond what I think and beyond what I know, because what it's actually doing is beyond anything I can grasp. Well, once we go to that, where is the end of that? That intelligence is the same intelligence of all things. How is that energy contained only in me rather than being an energy of all things? There's no stopping of that. That's forever and ever. So I'll pause. Are you, I'm just checking in terms of your connection. Is this working or are you glitchy?
It's just, I can see you're moving at a different rate for me, but I don't think it will affect the recording, but I can hear you. I can hear you, it's fine. Can you hear and see me?
I can hear you and see you, yes, and it goes kind of glitchy or slow, but yeah.
Yeah. There's a bit of a delay, but yeah, okay. We'll keep going. Okay. I suppose what comes to mind is we don't tap into that, who we really are, very often. I mean, what seems to be much more important for some reason is our little irrelevant, which is unbelievable, because why wouldn't we choose the wonder, the infinite, the amazing? That's who we are after all. But it just appears that that's what therapy is. Let's just shrink down to this thing that you think you are, and let's just talk about all what's going on in that little program. Let's talk about that and let's focus there.
And it's fascinating because how can you understand that apart from who we really are? How could that even be understood apart from who we really are? Because there's no way to get away from who you really are. You know how you said that it's like, oh boy, I live my life and I'm not even like thinking about that, not even considering that. Oh, sure, that you could walk around and not consider that, but you can't get away from it. You can't separate from that. That's the thing that's moving you anyway. So here you are, you go into therapy and the therapist looks at you, physical body, yes, see that, maybe even signs of trauma or something, even physical trauma, right? And then talks to you, right? Listens to the thinking that you've accumulated over the years and says, oh, definitely signs of trauma there, right? And so now we got the two things, and now let's proceed. So let's start talking about this. And we say, whoa. Did you just left out something? Like, which is fine, but do you understand who you're talking to? Do you understand who that is in front of you? Who is it you're talking to? Are you talking to this physical body with some programming and thinking? And is that who you're going to have the conversation with? Because unless you know who you're talking to, then I don't know what you're doing. I don't think you know what you're doing.
So this is the bit where I'm very curious about. Say somebody who's had all this trauma, the program has had lots of trauma. The program was left to cry as a baby, wasn't given love, was neglected, goes through life with the program, I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy, manifests relationships where they're treated badly because they feel they're unworthy, etc., keeps going through the same patterns and can't understand, So then they might go into therapy and all their focus is on is, I feel unworthy, I'm useless. Whatever the therapist is going to do with that. But are you saying it would be possible? Because what I've heard you say so much is just feel yourself to a better feeling. Just feel yourself. And I'm astounded that it actually works. However bad a mood I am, I'm astounded that it actually works. I can actually, I'm like, what? Sooner or later, I'm putting on the radio, dancing. I'm like, wow, I actually, and I felt really down, and I can just like navigate, just feel my way. And suddenly it's like, wow, okay, is that all that is required? And then you've clicked out of the program at that point because you're like on a high. You're not thinking about any of your trauma, which is there in the program, but you're not thinking about it. Is that all that's required? And just go and live a happy life. And at the end, no need to deal with any trauma, even if it's sexual abuse, God knows what. No need to deal with it. Is that what this could be?
Well, what the way to see that is, how is it that you are being guided in the living of your life? That's really it, right? It doesn't matter what I say or Sid says or whatever. But the question is, forget all that and forget all these teachings. Because if you've got an intelligence that could heal a cut, so that's pretty traumatic. If you get a cut and it splits the skin open and blood's coming out, right? And then you put a Band-Aid on it. Now, let me say something about that, which is so silly yet obvious. A Band-Aid about it? What is that? Take your attention away from it. Stop poking at it. Think about it. You just cut your finger. That's pretty traumatic. Put a Band-Aid. Why? So you don't see it. So you don't look at it. What? What? How can that ever help? Well, cover it up. Don't look at it, and you're not seeing it, and you are not able to do anything with it. Well, shouldn't I be doing something with it? You are doing something with it. What this intelligence is trying to do is to stop you doing silly things with it. Stop doing silly things with that. What that does is restores itself to wholeness. As long as you don't do silly things, as long as you don't poke at it, as long as you don't put your effort from your little mind, finite mind, thinking that you can repair that. You do not have the intelligence and ability to be able to repair that. What's best is you leave it alone. As you leave it alone, an intelligence makes it whole. Physically, that's what happens.
I mean, are we suggesting that whatever, call them traumas, stuff that happens to all of us, that I hesitate to say, but damages the program in some way, gives them limiting beliefs, get terrible things that happen in anyone's neutrally, it's terrible things happen. Are we saying that if left alone, the intelligence would heal those, whatever, wounds, or I don't know, I hesitate to call it wounds, but whatever.
Right.
It would be healed. Like, why are we going picking? Or let's dig more. Let's find where that came from. Let's like just leave it. But it appears that there is all this depression and like, which then yes, they tell us is caused by all the stuff that happened back then. Is that?
Yes. So when we look at that, then we're wanting to understand, like now we've moved from physical to psychological, and we're wanting to understand the nature of thought and the nature of consciousness, the nature of my mind. So there's a few things when it comes to that. So all we had before was an intelligence. We had Sydney Banks' principle of mind. Only, one of the principles. By the way, when we get into it and we're talking about all this, is we are talking about one thing, but we're kind of pulling out these aspects. So that intelligence, that formless energy, Sydney Banks said, there is a formless energy. It's an intelligence of all things. It is mind. And he said who you are is a microscopic aspect of that, right? So this is where there's no separation, right? And you have access to all of it. Now, the nature of this energy is not like data on a computer or information on a computer, which in a way is dead. It's not alive, right? The stuff, the things, right? But this intelligence is conscious and aware. It is aware, conscious and aware. And now let's look. If this is an infinite intelligence, aware, and by the way, infinite means all, nowhere it is not, right? It is all that. Aware, an aware intelligence. At that point, mind, consciousness, aware of what? You have an infinite intelligence that is aware and conscious. Aware of what? There is nothing to be aware of other than itself. It is infinite. So it is an aware intelligence. It's all you got. There is nothing to be aware of. There is only an awareness. That's what you get with two principles. You get nothing and everything. You get an infinite intelligence of all things that is aware. Two principles. Until you bring in a third principle. And notice here, I'm not going to change anything in what I just said. So I'll make the same statement two ways without changing it. So this infinite intelligence is aware of itself. This infinite intelligence is aware of every aspect of itself. That's the exact same statement. Do you see that? It is aware of itself. It is aware of every aspect of itself. Same statement. That second statement, aware of any aspect of itself, is in its nature of consciousness, is the ability to focus. Focus on what? Itself. There is nothing else. So what would it focus on? It is infinite. It is all there is. It is all there is. And it is aware of itself with a capacity to focus on any aspect of itself, and that is the third principle. Focused consciousness is thought. That is the third principle. And the moment you focus consciousness within the all, then now you have the creative principle. Now you have thought. And you and I, as a starting point, are simply by saying we are an aspect of all that is. We are an aspect, as Sydney Banks said, a microscopic aspect of this energy of all things. Right away, it's got to tell you, you are a thought. You are, what part of your nature is a thought. So this is important to understand thought, because for you to exist, it is thought. It is imagined. It is focused consciousness. That's who we are. A thought in the mind of God, a thought in the all. And that is our nature, is we share in that true nature. Why did I bring that up? Is because we're wanting to get to this programming from the finite perspective. So the part about us, which is unique, or it's unique to how we're imagined as human beings, is that unlike, say, a rock, which it could be said contains, most people wouldn't go that far, but it could be said contains consciousness. Now, the only reason, although people can't get their minds around it, is if we are starting point with, which is an infinite intelligence of all things, if that's the starting point, then anything within it must be made of it. So it's got to be made of consciousness. That one's hard to get. Plants are easier. So now you get a plant with a flower. And it looks like something moves the flower so it looks at the sun. So that one's easy. Something's going on in there. Animals are much easier because they're moving around. So that for sure looks like consciousness. There's something, though, distinct about us and an animal that I want to bring up, which is about a self-consciousness. People might argue, well, no, my animal knows, my dog knows, my cat knows who it is. Potentially, yes. And there's some degree of self-consciousness for sure, because they can feel. But there's more to it. So in other words, notice we have that same awareness of ourselves, awareness of our own thinking, awareness of just the way I described the bigger. So we parallel, we are made in the image. We are made in the image of the Creator, which means we share in its nature. I have a mind. Oh my gosh, I have a mind. It's my mind. And you go, well, you think you have a mind. You have the mind, which is really just part of it all, right? I have my own thoughts, right? I'm conscious, I'm aware. Yes, you're aware of yourself and you can think too. So we kind of share, right, in that nature. But what's different, a little different about us is the freedom. In other words, that infinite intelligence is free. There is no restriction. How could there be? There is nothing else. Right? It is an energy of all things. In order for it to be restricted in its freedom, there would have to be something else to restrict. There would have to be something else to influence, to stop it, to make it do something, right? So it's pure freedom. Within our own minds, there is pure freedom. Within our own minds, there is pure freedom. This is where you take an animal, it's a little different. So an animal that is also this energy of all things will fly south in the winter. Take a bird. It will fly south in the winter. Why? Why is that? Because this intelligence of all things will guide it to go south. It will feed an intelligence and a thinking that causes it to build a nest. How the hell do you get this thing that just showed up here able to build a nest? They have no schools. There's no classrooms where they're teaching the young ones. How can they do this? How can they go gather materials and then create nests out of these materials? So what's going on there is that intelligence and that thinking which operates it is not entirely free. It is completely, the nature of that animal is to completely be in an allowing state of that intelligence. It wouldn't resist it. It wouldn't resist. Why the hell should I build a nest? And I'm tired of going south. I look at these bears and none of them are going south. Why would I make that flight? So there is no resistance. There is no thought in opposition to its true nature. No thought in opposition to its true nature. You and I are made different. We are made with freedom of thought. We can think anything. We can think anything. We even have the freedom to think against our own true nature. There is nothing we cannot think. And we cannot be made to think something. Could be said that a bird or a bear that hibernates and a bird that flies south is made to think something. It could be said and could never be, and it can never resist that. You and I are a different idea. You and I have been created as a different idea in the image of the Creator, in the imagination of the Creator, sharing in its nature. Now, all things share in its nature, but you and I as human beings are at a different, it could be said, the leading edge idea, the furthest most idea of what that is. And when you look at the way we all act, some of us aren't a good representation of that leading edge idea of it, but that's okay because that's the freedom, and we're kind of not always quite being who we really are. We are not expressing the potential and possibility of all that we really are, but that's part of the freedom.
Yeah, so we're given the freedom to go back to that conditioned programming and mess with the intelligence, like not for our own good. We're given that freedom to mess it up for ourselves.
Well, yeah, it's the freedom to think anything, the freedom of thought, and that has within it a free will. But here's the funny thing about the free will. Because Sydney Banks talked about free will, and he talks about free will a lot. And here's the truth. So the truth would be, and he says, so Sydney Banks said, and there is only one will. So he says there's free will, you have free will, all that. And there is only one will, and that is the will of God, right? So what a paradox that is. What the hell? Did Zeus just say I have free will, or do I not have free will, right? Well, you have the freedom to allow that infinite intelligence or to resist it. You have the freedom to allow or to resist, and you will experience that. That will be your experience. But there is only one energy flowing. This is the part. The life force that flows is only one. And that energy that flows is one pure energy of one vibration and one source. That is the only energy that flows. And that flow, you are free to allow or resist. That's your freedom. So our freedom is that so you can think anything. You can think in harmony with that life force. You can think in harmony with intelligence. And you are free to think against it. You are free to think anything. You are free to think things that are not even true. You have the freedom to think it all.
And then that will be shown to be true, correct? If I take on the belief, which is a therapy belief, there are trapped emotions that need to be expressed. Like the more you cry, the better it is. But we were told it's good when the client cries, it's cathartic, it's getting out. There's trapped emotions in the system. There's trapped stuff in the nervous system. The trauma, we've got to get it out. Let's get this. First of all, I'd like to hear what you say about that. It seems like that can't be true. And secondly, if I believe it to be true, then I'll watch my clients releasing it and having these big breakthroughs, releasing it and then getting better. I'll have them for myself because I believe that to be true. And then I'll see lots of evidence of it everywhere. Look, see, she released that trauma and now she's really happy. You see what I'm saying? Is that?
Yes. Yes. So a couple of things in that is when you said, so you can, say, what did you say about, so that then it is true or it can be true? Like what?
Saying whatever we believe.
Yes.
It's shown to be true.
Yes. You will experience what you believe. You will experience what you believe. So you're not crazy, right? This is the thing. No, you're not crazy. That is true for you. But there's a difference between that's true for you. You have made that true for you is so different than what is true.
Because, I mean, just to bring in all the stuff with Grace, that she sees signs and all of these signs from her fiance and all of this, what you've been talking about. I was thinking at the time, way back when she used to talk about it on the Facebook, like she believes that to be true. I don't know whether she believes that to be true. She believes that he's giving her signs. So there goes another sign. There goes a flying fish. There goes these crazy things because that's her belief. Are we going too far? I mean, so it's not really true, or it is really true?
Okay, well, it is an experience. It is an experience, and it is a true experience because fish were jumping.
Yes.
Right. So now, see, this is why thought is the creative principle. It is creating. That is creating. It is creating our reality. It is creating the reality that we're engaged in. And creation, of course, is finite. My experience begins and ends. The creation of anything, physical or otherwise, is an experience. It's a beginning and an end. It's a finite experience. And so now there's something different here. And creation, this is also why you could say that all creation is co-creation.
Right.
All creation is co-creation. Co-creation between you, who you think you are, and all that is. You are always co-creating with Source. You are forever co-creating your experience with Source.
This is where it gets a bit you know, there's the picture of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, and then all the stuff underneath, right? So in the therapy world, the tip of the iceberg is what you think you want. I want money, I want a relationship. That's consciously what I want. What's running your life is the unconscious beliefs. Sorry, I forgot where I was going with it.
No, I love that you went there though. So there's something running it that seems different than.
Yeah, so you're saying it's a co-creation, but if this screwed up conditioned system, which is all the unconscious beliefs that I'm not worthy, that I'm unlovable, all false, because how can that be? We are infinite love, so all false, but all the thoughts that, you know, we have, all our limiting beliefs, all of that's in the core of it, that's the co-creation that's going on. We don't want to create that.
Well, there's something interesting about an iceberg, and I love that example, because there is experience that's above the iceberg. There's your actual actions, words, and behavior visible. I can see it, right? What's driving that? Underneath the iceberg, which is the greatest part of it, is driving it. So there are beliefs, there are values, which are just collections of beliefs and things, right? But again, it's thought underneath it, driving it, formed thought. How did it get formed? Well, you heard your mother say it, and it was on TV the whole time. No one gets anywhere unless they work hard, and you got to deserve what you've got. So you heard a bunch of stuff. And so there's these formed thoughts collected underneath the iceberg. What's missed is beyond the iceberg, made of the same.
Aha.
Made of the same, unformed. And it's far bigger than the iceberg.
What's co-creating here? Like the real us and because there's only one thing. God, it gets confusing. All these limiting thoughts running our life. This is the problem. Why people go into therapy, say, get rid of my limiting thoughts, then I can be happy, then I can be rich, then I can get my relationship. Just get rid of the limiting thoughts. It's easy. Release the emotion, gone. Like, what is, we don't have to worry about the limiting thoughts.
Right. You could say that there really is source that then manifests into that through you. This is where Sydney Banks said, it is an energy contaminated. Now, I don't like that he used that word, but because it doesn't feel to me, I mean, if he's referring to the problems, then it is contaminated. And in theory, you could say, yes, it's all contamination because it's all a limitation. It's all a twisting of something, right? But you get that entire energy beyond the iceberg forming into this iceberg, which now, in order to manifest, like by the time it's at the top, it's going through some contamination, right, of thought. So that energy and intelligence filters through your own thinking so that it is experienced by you, reflected back to you, so that you are experiencing what you are thinking, right? So this is what you are living. You are living in the thinking that you are conscious of. I mean, what an obvious statement. You're certainly not living in the experience of thoughts that you are not conscious of. Now, this is maybe back to your thing about the subconscious. Let's look at this, because that's what started this. You are living in the experience of your thinking. You are living in the experience of the thinking you are conscious of. And yet people would say, no, I don't think so. I think there's thoughts I'm not conscious of that I'm living in the experience of.
Yes.
And that can never be. Because if that ever were, then there's a boogeyman out there. Then there is something that's creating your experience, and it is not the thought that you are conscious of. That it is not the thought that you are activating. You are activating with your own consciousness. It is something else. And if you're not careful, it will sneak up on you and it will sabotage your relationships and it will sabotage your financial future.
So let me give you an example. If we've got time, have we got time? Oh, have we got time?
We're fine because I've got a,
okay.
Let's
just a quick example from my own life. I'm bobbling along in life, thinking I'm fine, thinking I'm quite a calm, relaxed person. Everyone's telling me how calm I am. Okay, bobbling along. Chunk of hair falls out, for example. I get shingles, I get a rash. So like, that's interesting. Never in a million years would I think it's stress related. But these things keep coming. It's like intelligence going, hello. I get into the 3 principles, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly I feel all this thinking comes into my consciousness for the first time. Like I thought I was just fine. I knew I was very disorganized and messy, didn't really think much of it. Suddenly, 3 principles bring me into a world of like, oh my God, this is horrendous. My mind is going so fast. This isn't disorganization. This is like full on. Well, then, anyway, it was very unpleasant. I was suddenly really, really aware of all of this chaos. And then it's no wonder that the stressful sort of symptoms were coming. Then I go to a homeopath and she says to me, a very psychic lady, says to me, I think you're in trauma. You're suffering from intergenerational trauma. I'm like, oh, from the Holocaust. I'm like, oh, right. So that's what's going on. Then my focus, I start Googling intergenerational trauma and la, 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 la. My experience of life is very much like, yeah, I'm in fight flight. I do feel like almost like there's a war going on. I do feel like that. It got brought to my attention that, oh gosh, yeah, I'm on the run. I'm just on the run. I change countries all the time. All these things that previously were out of my awareness, but that were happening. Move to this country, move to that country. Never settle in a house for more than 5 minutes. Like, but kind of all of that was just sort of happening out of my awareness. Suddenly it's in my awareness. Oh yeah, must be this intergenerational trauma. I mean, so yes, then I focused on it a lot. And then, surprise, surprise, I go to these other professionals and they're like, oh yeah, I can see that in your energy system. Yeah, you've got a trapped emotion from your great grandma. Yeah, I can see her above you, your great grandma who died in the Holocaust, all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, like it must be true.
Right.
Is this just a busy mind? Is this just a busy mind? Is it just focusing on, like, what is that? It was unconscious for all those years. So something unconscious was driving things that was making hair fall out, and that's what.
Yeah.
Man, whatever.
So absolutely, it's real. Like it's real. There's thought to something and creating a stressor, right? It's for sure that's all happening. That's not, not happening. So if you say intergenerational, well, let's say it like this. So first off, of course that's all true, because if who you are, this energy, intelligence of all things, how can you not be affected by the Holocaust? Did you want to exclude that? How can you not be affected by that? That is within consciousness and thought and an energy that, and this is an Abraham quote, every thought that's ever been thought still exists. Every thought that's ever been thought still exists. That doesn't mean you need to think them. But don't try and get rid of them. It doesn't mean you need to think them. But if you try to get rid of them, you are trying to make consciousness less than it is. You will never do that. Consciousness will only ever become more than it is. In other words, the all, that infinite intelligence, is in an eternal state of expansion. It is becoming more and more and more of itself. What else could it become? It can't become anything else. There is nothing else. So consciousness can only become more of itself. How would consciousness become more of itself? Well, thankfully, there's aspects of consciousness like you, a finite perspective. You will feel within you the calling of who you really are. Who you really are, you will feel that energy, the truth of who you are, you will feel it. And as that flows through this speck that is you, you will feel desire to express more of all that you are. Taking this speck of consciousness that is you, as you allow more of who you really are to express through you, you, speck, become more of all that you are. Imagine 8 billion specks becoming more of all that is. What happens to all that is? It becomes more of itself. This is what's going on unless you take your cue from thoughts that are in resistance to that. Well, that wouldn't matter anyway, because consciousness expands anyway, but your experience is going to be one of suffering, because what will happen is the expansion of all that is will be coming through you, only more restricted by you. And that restriction is suffering.
So all these thoughts of intergenerational trauma that don't feel good is my cue. No, like this is in resistance to what's trying to come through, to who you are. When it's trying to come through and trying to express, it's taking you to a better, bigger, better place, presumably, always.
Always, always. I mean, heck, it's healing your cuts. It doesn't want anything bad for you. When you eat it, moves the nutrients into the right place and all of that. It is only a source of well-being.
So anything that doesn't feel good, any thought that doesn't feel good is untrue.
Very good. It is, let's, anything that doesn't feel good is less true. It is less intelligent than this infinite intelligence.
And that's why it feels like that, because you're thinking in opposition to what you are. So unless therapy
and you are experiencing that thinking.
Yes. So any therapy that doesn't feel amazing should not be engaged in for 1 second.
The calling of that intelligence always feels better than where you are. If a therapy is encouraging the calling of your own intelligence, it will move you to always to feeling better. If a therapy is driving you more deeply into what is less intelligent, it will feel worse to you. Because the therapist is not all that intelligent. The therapist is a finite mind trying to figure all this stuff out. You, on the other hand, have an infinite intelligence that already figured it all out. It already figured out the Holocaust. It already figured out every single thing that got said to you as a kid. Already that's been figured out. And it calls you to more and more and more intelligence. And it calls you more and more to the truth of who you are and your true nature. Every step you take in that direction will feel better than where you are. Every step you take away from that in your thinking will feel worse than where you are. Perfect guidance. Invariable, unconfusing, pure clarity.
So trauma and limiting beliefs, which never, ever feel good, are completely the wrong direction to focus in. Even though we have Gabor Mate, who says we're all traumatized and every illness is to do with trapped emotions, la, la, la. False.
Which is true.
Oh, gosh,
which is true.
What?
Which is just true, right? The feeling of it is that attention to it, is that effect of that. Now, by the way, here's an interesting thought. Like with you, you talk intergenerational trauma and all that stuff. I mean, we've always known that. That is, if in the Bible where it said the sins of the father are passed to the children, the sins, that is the errors, the misunderstandings. Those mistakes, those ways of thinking, they're passed on to the children.
This is blowing my mind. Is nothing true? Basically, nothing's true.
Everything is true that you focus upon. Everything you focus upon will be true for you.
It will be true for you, and you'll watch it happen, but nothing's true. You can create every single
you can create. There is no limit. There is no limit to what you can make true for you. There is no limit to what you can make true for you. But what you make true for you, you cannot make that true for me unless I do it myself. So no matter what Gabor says or no matter what anybody says, it is all true if you make it true for you. It is absolutely true for you if you make it true for you.
Right. Everything's true and nothing's true. That's that contradiction's about right.
Right. That's the paradox. There in the freedom, there you are so free you can choose bondage. You are so free in your mind you can think you are not. Because if you were not able to think that you are not free, you would not be free. There is only pure freedom. You can think anything, and you cannot be made to think anything. You have a free mind.
Yeah, the free mind and the guidance.
And the guidance.
And the guidance to take you where you want to go, that is amazing for you. If you choose to take that on. If you choose to listen to that guidance.
Well, here's the thing that happens if you choose not to.
You suffer. Your hair falls out.
Well, but now let's maybe complete with that. When you don't listen, because this will go to the subconscious, unconscious beliefs, like all that stuff, right? So what are you doing is that there is a thought. You are thinking a thought in contradiction to your true nature. Yeah. No, I'm not. Blah, 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 blah. No, I'm not. Everything's good. My life is good. Look at me. I'm happy because I'm smiling, right? No, you are thinking a thought that's in contradiction to your true nature. Nope, I'm good. I'm good. High vibration. That's what you need, right? And I've got high vibration. Look at me, right? I'm going to live a good life, right? And Abraham says, when you don't feel the feeling, in other words, when you don't notice the belief, the contaminated thought, when you don't notice, Abraham will say, oh, don't worry, it'll get worse. Law of attraction takes that little thought, right? You're being chased. Your life is at risk. You don't know when they'll come. You need to keep moving. Okay? No, my life is good. I only move because I like adventures. Oh, nice paradigm. That was a nice reframing, right? You're so not being where you are. You're not being where you are, not feeling. Don't worry, the signal gets worse. Law of attraction takes the dissonance and expands it. Dr. Bill Pettit says, right? Psychiatrist, he understands. He says, so then you start to think there's this mind-body connection, right? So you're being chased. There is a threat to you and you don't know where it's going to come from and when it can hit you, right? So this untrue thought, because there is no such thing, there's only a law of attraction. There's only you draw things to you. There is nothing ever that can assert you. There's nothing that can threaten or come against you, because true nature, God, nothing threatens God. It's who you really are. You don't believe that. You're believing something else. Because you heard it when you were a kid and it's been in your family for a while. So you need to keep moving. Stay away from that. You'll live a good life, right? So you don't notice, and you're living a good life because it's adventure. It's not really running from anything, right? That sounds much better. And so, but the feeling and the dissonance and the vibration will get stronger. And Dr. Bill Pettit says is that within that, chemical releases in the body, right? So this is where the chemical releases that cause all kinds of other things, right? Well, no, you still didn't pick it up, right? You still don't pick it up. So don't worry, it'll get worse. Abraham, don't worry, it'll get worse. Law of attraction moves all vibrations and expands them. This is not for punishment. This is for awareness. If you don't have awareness, as the vibration increases, you understand what you're creating. Otherwise, you have no idea what you're creating, right? So, and whether what you're creating serves you or not, whether what you're creating is in alignment with your true desire or not, how would you even know? Well, you could know by the way you feel, because if it feels good, then it will go align. Well, this feels good. Look at me. I'm in adventure. I'm in whatever. And so you're covering over with words, behavior, and action to not be where you are. You're not being where you are. Pretty soon what happens is a physical manifestation in your body. Oh, you think you don't notice, it'll get worse. Well, did you notice the hair loss? Now that won't go away. Now the lower back pain is not going away. Now that is there, right? And so do you notice now? Because it's like, oh, don't worry, it'll get worse. Do you notice now, right? So this is
that to jolt you to kind of wake up to who you really are? Like, is that it? Because I've still got a crazy busy mind, and I'm sure it's having effects on my body. I don't want to be doing that. It appears what's playing out. It appears that's what's playing out at the moment. Is it as simple as just reaching for that better feeling? Or is it the understanding of who you really are? Just start noticing that a wonder of that I'm breathing, the wonder that my food is digesting, like what?
Yes.
Where'd you go to get out of that? I can hear it. The alarm's ringing. I can hear it. I don't want to.
Yes.
Well,
here's what you know then for sure is your wisdom is guiding you by a positive feeling. Sydney Banks says your wisdom is only in a positive feeling. Abraham Hicks says make nothing more important than that you feel good, right? All of them pointing to positive feeling, beautiful feelings. So let's just go back to our true nature. Our true nature is this infinite intelligence, this source energy. What is the vibration of this energy? It is the highest vibration in the universe. It is the source of all things. How do you describe a vibration that high? How do you describe an energy at that level of consciousness? How you would describe it is, from our perspective, is we would say that is pure love. What we would say is that is infinite peace. We would say that is bliss, that is joy, that is abundance. So our descriptions of those energy, of that energy, that source energy, how we're describing it is like that. So this is what's living you and breathing you. And as your thinking moves more in that direction, because here's what you are feeling. You are feeling that is the energy that lives you, which comes into form. Sydney Banks said it's formless. A formless energy comes into form via thought. So even in the iceberg, right, there's all that stuff. It comes into form via thought. So it comes into form via thought. And so and the minute you think, the minute you take that energy and think, you will feel your thinking, which is also a consciousness vibrating. You will feel that vibration of your thinking. When you think a thought, that thought vibrates, resonates within you. Now we have guidance because there's an energy that is constant and steady and unwavering and never lowers beneath this high vibration. That is the truth of me. And the moment I think or give my focus or attention to anything, I feel the vibration. I activate the vibration of my current thinking within me. And now I have relative high vibration relative to my current thinking. And the difference in that is my feeling, my emotion in this moment. The closer I am to what that is in my thinking, the more intelligent my thinking is. It feels peaceful. It feels pure clarity and knowing. It feels sureness and confidence and certainty and empowerment. The closer it is to that intelligence, the more it feels like that. The extreme furthest I get from it, I feel an insecurity and a fear and a despair and a hopelessness. Right? Because what I'm thinking is so untrue. It is so contradictory to the truth of who I am that I can feel it. And I can feel it every step of the way. So just the question is, do you feel it yet? Oh, don't worry, it'll get worse. Do you feel it yet? Don't worry, it'll get worse. And then, well, what should I do once I finally feel it? And it's terrible, right? Well, I don't know. What should you do? You know, what should you do? Which direction do you want to go in? You need an answer to that question? built into you. Here's I made this humorous thing. I said, God actually designed all of this, thinking it is completely foolproof. He designed the whole thing going, this is going to be great. I send them down and they're never disconnected. Yeah, but how are you going to get them to listen to you? How are you going to get them to do it? Oh, no, I got that part figured out. When they listen to me, it's going to feel really good. This is going to work. It's easy. When they feel the bliss of thinking as I think, they will for sure. I mean, he said, come on, what idiot would go down there and think in opposition to their well-being and continue to think it? It's never going to happen. Once they get down there and they see that if they think in opposition to their well-being, it's painful, every single one of them is going to follow their bliss. And we will be whole. And they will live there as God. They will live and play and create as the creators that they are. This is foolproof. That was God's plan.
It just makes me think that one should always follow one's bliss only. I mean, that's just what makes sense to me. But I find myself wanting to go out in nature and just like sitting in nature all day long, doing nothing. I feel blissful there. But
now.
I think against that and think, oh, I've got to get home, clear the house. I hate it. Clear, cook. That doesn't good. That means I don't have to do it.
Let's look at that, right? So you go out into nature and it feels good and it's blissful. So in that state, what's great is the relief of the noise, right? It's funny how the noise comes back here too, to say, well, this isn't right. You can't do this all day, right? So then the noise pulls you back out, right? So to follow that. Now, the part that it pulls you out with is it says, if all you did was sit in this bliss, what do you think about yourself all the time? Is this all you're going to do, right? And there's a bit of a misunderstanding in that, because in that misunderstanding, it would say you wouldn't care about the things you care about. You wouldn't love the things that you love. You would neglect them all. Well, that's ridiculous, but it's talking you into it, right? If you go out and do this, right? Well, if you go out and be in an infinite intelligence, it actually has you be more intelligent around caring about the things you care about. It has you be more intelligent and present to them and in appreciation of what you care about. See, this is where one thing I find Abraham much better at than in the three principles. In the three, I don't think Sid was like this, but I do think that a lot of teachers of the three principles, they keep leading you home. And they say that that's the journey. You're being called back home. And home is not a prison. Home is where you come from. It is not where you stay. You don't go home and stay there. If you wanted to be in that bliss with nature and all of that, always, then you should have stayed where you came from. You should have stayed there. You came here for the joy of this. You came for the joy of this. You came for the contrast in all of this. If you wanted to sit in this peace and beautiful feelings, then you should have stayed where you came from. But this is where you come from, into this beautiful playground, which Sid called that. He called nature, when he said nature, Sid described nature as God's playground. He literally talked about nature as God's playground. Well, what can God play with? When God's playing, what's God playing with? Thought. There's nothing else to play with. It's all thought. Sid said that too. It's all thought. So God's playground is nature. What is God playing with? Is thought. That's what you're here to do. Play with thought, guided by an infinite intelligence.
So there's nothing wrong with going down into fight, flight, and feeling awful in a way, because you're here to play. I mean, yes. Up, down, all around, appreciate the highs even more. It's just, we're here to be a messy human. We're here to experience all of it. It's not good and bad, would you say?
It's all experience. It's
yes.
all experience. Listen, when you think about that, is like, well, but more money is better than less, right? Well, to who? Take the children of multi-billionaires who want a minimalist lifestyle in tiny homes, that they want to build tiny homes on the land without any possessions. Well, that is paradise. Well, to them, right? So which is it? And that is like why it is like there is no other like you. You are creating your own reality. You are creating according to your own true desires and what you want. And your experiences, by the way, keep clarifying your desires. So, as you moved, let's say, from place to place and all of that, and you go, I just want to settle down. I don't want all this.
Right.
The experience of what you do not want makes more clear what the true desire is, so that it helps you to focus.
And we've all got our own true desire, which are different to each other.
All different, right? And here I am. I've only been in the same place the whole time going, I don't want to live like this. I want to be going around, right? Like so true desire, because we all have unique experience and a unique, and here's the other thing. You only have 100 years. You're infinite. And Abraham will say, and this is overstated, Abraham will say, there's more to you than you could experience in 20 or 30 lifetimes. And I think that number is too small. There's more to you than you could experience in 20 or 30 lifetimes. And so that's just in the present, in the now, that you. But the thing is, every time you continue to experience, you keep expanding the you that you are. So forget it. By 20 or 30 lifetimes, the potential that is you is so big that another several hundred wouldn't even do it. And then, of course, as you experience those, the possibility that is you becomes even more. So in that, even in that, if there's more to you than you could experience in 20 to 30 lifetimes, so you got 100 years here. Well, what are you going to do? Which way are you going to go? What does it matter? Get on with it. What does it matter? Right? Well, did you enjoy this? Is it bliss? Yeah. But what about that over there? Does it really matter? You can't experience that now. You will never experience all of the delicious meals. Well, you could never experience all of the delicious meals you will experience in your lifetime. You certainly don't want to experience them all now, do you? So you want to savor them slowly, enjoying them. So that's the same with any of that. It's like the limitation of it adds to its beauty, its preciousness. 100 years and it's over. By the way, in that 100 years will never be repeated. You will never be back in this point of consciousness with the others. This is precious, right? And there are billions and billions and billions of these that you will experience. Every one of them is precious.
That is inspiring, uplifting. It must be true. Yeah, amazing. Amazing.
Wow. Okay, this is yeah. So we really did go over. Thank you for this conversation. Let me I'll stop the recording and we'll say.
Thank
all right.
you.
Thank you.